Hello students, good morning to all of you. Welcome to this virtual class. Last period we are discussing that concept of aggregate demand. And what is aggregate demand? We have already discussed. And also we have discussed components of aggregate demands. These components again I am repeating. One is that household private consumption demand. First is that household private consumption demand. We have already discussed what does it mean. Second was that private investment demand. Private investment demand. Private household or private consumption demand. Private investment demand and government demand. Third one, government demand of goods and services. And fourth one, net export, that is X minus F. Household private consumption demand, that is C. Private investment demand, that is I. Government demand of goods and services, that is G. And this is that X minus M. So on that day we are discussing that aggregate demand AD equal to consumption plus investment plus government expenditure plus net export. Lastly, I was discussing about the name of that Alfred Marshall, who says that AD equal to consumption plus investment. AD equal to consumption and investment. So AD equal to C plus I. It means the aggregate demand is the sum total of two components, that is consumption, that is household consumption and the private consumption, and that investments, or that is C plus I. So AD can be mathematically calculated, that is the consumption demand and investment demands. That is that mathematically calculate that aggregate demand, consumption demand and investment demands. So we can explain here that only according to the Marshall total analysis in this chapter or in this unit will discuss that consumption and demand, total consumption or total investment, that is called that aggregate demands. Think yourself, if your income will be zero, what did I say? Aggregate demand equal to consumption, aggregate consumption plus investment, as per that Alfred Marshall. I was discussing on that day. Sorry. Professor Keynes, James Keynes. Consumption plus investment equal to aggregate demands. Now think yourself, if your income is zero, then what will be your consumption and what will that investments? If that is country's level of income is zero, what will be that consumption? If your income is zero, can that consumption will be zero? You have to survive your life, you have to consume that some goods. So it is clear that if that income is zero, you must be that consume something. Let be that your consumption is 100 rupees or 100 crores of rupees, so for the country's level of incomes. And what will the investment? What will the investments? On that day, so for that investment is concerned, I have already said there is the two types of investment. One is autonomous investment, another is that induced investments. Autonomous investments and induced investments. What is autonomous investment? Whatever may be the income, the investment will remain same. Whatever may be the income, suppose level of income is zero and investment, level of income is zero, investment is 100. Level of income is 100, investment will be also 100. Level of income is 200, investment will be 100. Level of income is 300, investment will be 100. It means whatever may be the income, the investment remains same. That is to be called that autonomous investments. Induced investment is that investment when income increases, investment increases. When income increases, investment increases. In case of autonomous investment, that is level of income 0 and investment is also constant same it is 100. So the curve, investment curve will be like this. This is the OX axis, or this is that level of income, and this is the 100, 200, 300, 400, like this. So always that will the say this curve is to be called that autonomous investment curve. But induced investment is that investment when income increases, investment increases. When income increases, suppose 0, 100, 100, 150, 200, 200, 300, 250, like this investment. This is that Y and this is that investments. So that types of investment is to be known as induced investments. So in this case, investment will be move upwards. So in our analysis, we will discuss that investment, autonomous investment. So our analysis here that autonomous investments. So investment expenditure will be always same. That is to be called that autonomous investment. So when that consumption expenditure is 100 rupees, let with that investment expenditure, it will be also 100 rupees. If the level of income increases from 0 to 100, let be that your consumption expenditure increases 100 to 150. These are the crores of rupees. I am giving the example in the crores of rupees. Rupees in crores or crore. So if level of income increases 0 to 100, in expenditure, consumption expenditure increases 100 to 150. Investment, this is I am speaking about always autonomous investment. So investment will remain same. If income increases 0 to 100 and 100 to 200, then consumption expenditure let be 150 to 200 and investment will remain same, that is 100 rupees, crores of rupees. Expenditure is also in crores of rupees. Similarly, if that in level of income increases 200 rupees to 300 rupees, crores rupees, that expenditure consumption expenditure increases 200 to 250 and that investment expenditure will remain same, that is the 100. Similarly, if that level of income increases 300 to 400, that consumption expenditure may be that 300 crores rupees and investment expenditure will remain same, that is 100 crores rupees. Similarly, if the level of income increases 400 rupees to 500 rupees, the consumption expenditure increases from 300 to 350 and that investment expenditure will be, that is that 100. Similarly, 600 crores of rupees, the level of income increases from 500 to 600, consumption expenditure is 400 and that investment expenditure will be 100. This is that one kinds of imaginary examples of aggregate demand schedules. This is the aggregate demand schedule. Aggregate demand schedule. This is the imaginary example of the aggregate demand schedule. So, what is aggregate demand here? We have already known consumption plus investment equal to aggregate demand. Consumption plus investment equal to aggregate demand. It means consumption expenditure and investment. Here C is the total consumption expenditures. This is the C and this is the I. C is the total consumption expenditure which is given in crores of rupees. I is the total investment expenditure which is also given in the crores of rupees. So how much is the aggregate demand here? In first case, if the level of income is 0 and that consumption expenditure 100, investment expenditure 100, so it means 100 plus 100 equal to 200. Similarly, if the level of income increases 0 to 100 crores rupees, expenditure increases 100 to 150 crores rupees and investment will remain same, it means 150 plus 100 equal to 250. Similarly, third cases when income increases 100 to 200 rupees, crores of rupees, consumption expenditure increases 150 to 200 crore rupees and investment expenditure remains same, it means 200 plus 100 equal to 300. If income increases 200 crores to 300 crore rupees, similarly consumption expenditure increases 200 crores to 250 crore rupees and investment expenditure that is remains same 100, so that aggregate demand will be 250 plus 100 equal to 350 crores of rupees aggregate demands. And similarly, if that income increases 300 crores to 400 crore rupees, consumption expenditure increases 250 to 300 and that investment will remain same, so aggregate demand will be 300 plus 100 equal to 400 crores of rupees. It is my imaginary examples. Similarly, 400 to 500, if the level of income increases, consumption expenditure increases 300 to 350, investment will remain same, so aggregate demand consumption expenditure 350 plus 100 equal to 450 crores rupees. And last one, in my example, 500 crores to 600 crore rupees, so consumption expenditure increases 350 to 400 rupees and that investment expenditure remains same, and aggregate demand will be 400 plus 100 equal to 500. This is that aggregate demand concept, or we may say that this is that aggregate demand schedule, AD schedule. Level of income that is given in rupees, crores of rupees, consumption expenditure rupees in crores and expenditure investment expenditure in crores, and this is also total aggregate demand which is that rupees in crores. So now we'll draw the diagram. What will the shape of the consumption expenditure curve, investment expenditure curves and the level of income. Now let me that O x-axis and this is the y-axis. Y-axis is the level of income in crores of rupees, and y-axis depends both consumption and investment. Consumption and investments. Y-axis depends at the level of incomes and y-axis represents the consumption expenditures and investment expenditures. Or this is also given in rupees crores. Suppose 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 like this. And here is so y-axis, that is that 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 and 700 like this. Zero level of income. First I will draw that investment expenditures. Zero level of income 100, 100 level of income 100, 200 level of income 100, 300 level of income 100. It means this is that investment curve. This is called that investment curve. Now level of income is 0 and your consumption expenditure is 100. 0, 100, 0, 100, 100, 150, 200, 200, 300, 250, 400, 300, 500, 350 and 600, 400. This is called consumption curve. This is called consumption curve or aggregate consumption curve. AD equal to C plus I, consumption plus investment. Suppose this is that C and this is that I. Zero level of income, total consumption plus investment equal to aggregate demand 200. Zero level of income, AD is 200. 100 level of income, 250. 200 level of income, 300. 300 level of income, 350. 400 level of income, 400. 500 level of income, 450. And 600 level of income, 500. This is called aggregate demand, which is consumption plus investment curve. Which is that consumption plus investment curve, which is to be called that aggregate demand curve. C is the consumption curve, I is the investment curve, C plus I AD. This is the red color, which is that aggregate demand curve. This table shows that consumption expenditure increases with the every rise in the level of income. Income increases, consumption increases. Why that consumption increases? That table shows that that level of consumption increases due to the increase in the level of incomes. But the proportion is not same. The proportion is not same. Only that as per my examples, I have given that 50 rupees have that 50 crores of rupees increase, but the whenever we calculate the percentage will not be same. So here is to be said like this: if consumption expenditure increases, level of income increases, but that investment remains same. Investment remains same because it is that autonomous investments. See it at that 200 level of income, that is that y equal to c. If level of income, which is that y, this is that c, and this is the I. So in case of 200 crores rupees, where y or level of income equal to level of consumptions, or the 200 crores rupees equal to 200. Before that, income increases, consumption increases, and that is that proportions which is not equal. Remember it. What I want to say that at the level of income 200 crores rupees, consumption is 200 crores rupees, and whenever that level of income 400 rupees, the aggregate demand is 400 rupees. Two things I want to compare it. एक point ऐसे है, it means one point here is like this, where that y is equal to c, and another point is that where that y equal to ad in the level of the 400 crores of rupees of the level of incomes. It means aggregate consumption expenditure is greater than level of income up to the 200 crores of rupees. Initially, that aggregate consumption expenditure is greater than the level of income up to the income level of 200 crores of rupees. The community meets its consumption needs out of its past savings. It means what is that past saving? They are expending on that consumptions. Like in this corona period stage, if that income of the people is not as comparison now what was the previous, so they are consuming what they are saved in that past. So that past saving income is to be now that consumptions, so that the community meets its consumption needs out of its past saving. But after this, as the level of income increases, consumption expenditure do also increases, but lags behind the income. It means here is that C is greater than Y. C is greater than Y. Here is C equal to Y, or after the 200 level of incomes, that Y is greater than C or C is less than Y. I want to say like this, where before the 200 crores of level of income, that consumption expenditure is more than income, and after the 200 level of income, consumption is less than that of incomes. The consumption expenditure curve therefore will slope upwards as shown here. That is that. And in my diagram, one is that consumption curve, another is that investment curve, another is that consumption plus investment curve. Autonomous investment case, I was already said that time it will be the parallel to that x-axis, if that investment will remain same, whatever may be that level of income. That is why the autonomous investment curve is parallel to x-axis. Similarly, as per my explanation, if income increases, consumption increases. So every level of income that consumption increases, so that consumption curve move upwards. And another curve which I have written here, C plus I equal to AD, because consumption plus investment equal to aggregate demand. So that as there is the autonomous investment, whatever the AD is increasing, that is the parallel to that consumption curve and investment curve. So this is the difference between that investment curve, consumption curve, and that AD curve. So there are the three curve I have drawn here. First one is the investment curve, second one that consumption curve, and third one that AD curve or consumption plus investment curve. So aggregate investment expenditure of the economy has been taken here only in the form of that autonomous investments. It means that investment expenditure which is taken here, each and every case, that is 100 crores of rupees. This is called that autonomous investments, because autonomous investment are those type of investment, whatever may be the income, the investment will remain same. So that aggregate investment expenditure of the economy has been taken here only in the form of autonomous investment. As states above, that autonomous investment independent level of income, any change of the level of income has no influence on that investment, so that investment will remain same. That is to be called that autonomous investments. But in case of that, aggregate demand can be derived adding that consumption demand and investment demand at different levels of income. 0 level of income, 100 consumption expenditure. 100 level of income, 150 rupees of that crores of rupees the expenditure. Different level of income and different level of that consumption. And we got that aggregate demand, that is that consumption plus investment equal to that aggregate demand. So these are the called, this is called that aggregate demand schedule, and this is that aggregate demand curve, this is that consumption curve, and this is that investment curve. Next we will switch over to that aggregate supply or concept of the aggregate supply. Now it is clear about that aggregate demand, that is the consumption curve, and that is the investment curve. But remember it, note to the point, there are two noteworthy points, that aggregate demand depends upon the level of income. Aggregate demand depends on the level of incomes. Aggregate demand depends on the level of income. It means it rises with the increase in income. If that income increases, aggregate demand increases. If that income decreases, aggregate demand will decrease. That is that direct income increases, aggregate demand increases. Income decreases, aggregate demand decreases. When income increases, aggregate demand or aggregate expenditure also increases, but increases in aggregate demand is less than that increase in income. That we will discuss in that next, when we will start that consumption function and that investment functions. Before that, we have to discuss that one another components of that aggregate supply, that is that aggregate supply. We will discuss next is that aggregate supply. What do you mean by aggregate supply? The supply or aggregate supply is the money value of total supply of goods and services available for purchase by an economy during a given period. Dear students, I have already said about that net national product factor cost, which is to be find out by that income method, expenditure method, and that value added methods. Income method, value added method, and that expenditure methods. So here is the questions, what do you mean by aggregate supply? It means the country, whenever the produce the different goods and services in an accounting year, is to be known as that aggregate supply. What is aggregate supply or meaning of aggregate supply? Meaning of aggregate supply. meaning of aggregate supply. What do we know aggregate supply? Aggregate supply is the money value of total supply of goods. Total supply of goods and services. Who is supplying? The producers. So that is the total money value of all the supply of goods and services available for the purchase by the economy. These goods and services will be available in the market. Available in the market to purchase in an economy or in the economy. तीन कंडीशन होता है. फर्स्ट क्या है? मीनिंग ऑफ एग्रीगेट. दिस द टोटल मनी वैल्यू. टोटल मनी वैल्यू किसका? The what are the total supply of goods and services? The producer in an economy produces the different types of goods and services. That goods and services are available in the market and that can be purchased in an economy is to be known as the aggregate supply. So again I repeat, what do we know aggregate supply? The aggregate supply is the money value of total supply of goods and services available for purchase in the economy during that given period. During given period. Money value, supply of goods and services available in the market, purchase in the economy during given periods. These are the four conditions I am writing here. Total value, money value of total supply of goods and services which are available in the market to purchase in the economy during the given period is to be called that aggregate supply. So I have already discussed detail in that NNP at factor cost. That is that measurement of national income or national income. The components of aggregate supply is first components of aggregate supply is first one consumption expenditures. Consumption expenditures. And second is that saving. First and second is saving. Consumption expenditures and saving are the two components of that aggregate supply. Like that aggregate demand components is that consumption and investments. Aggregate supply components is that consumption and saving. Here the difference I in that aggregate demands, saving in that aggregate supply. So a major portion of income is spent on consumption of goods and services, and the balance after the consumption, what is remaining, that is to be called that saving. It means why is that income level of income after the consumption, what is the remaining amount, that is to be called that saving. It means Y minus C equal to S. Income minus consumption equal to saving. So I will not discuss detail about that aggregate supply curve. When we will draw that equilibrium conditions in the both the cases of aggregate demand curve and aggregate supply curve, then I will explain in detail about that supply curve. But when income increases, consumption increases and saving also increases. Income increases, consumption increases and saving also increases. So that time that aggregate supply curve will move upwards and it will be in that 45-degree angles. Income increases, consumption plus saving increases, I will draw that later on of this curve, but that curve will be moved upwards. This is called that aggregate supply curve, that is consumption plus saving. And this is called that aggregate demand curve, which is that consumption investments. So, as per the Keynes, components of aggregate demand, consumption and investments. Aggregate supply, one is that consumption, another is that saving. So two components of that aggregate supply curve, that is that one is that consumption, another is the saving. Or what is Y? We are saying Y equal to consumption plus saving. Y is here that national income, that is NNPF factor cost. I will not explain more about the NNPF or national product factor cost. So that is equal to, it means NNPF factor cost equal to consumption plus saving. So that curve will move upwards, which will be that 45-degree angle, remember it. One is that aggregate demand curve, another is that aggregate supply curve. So both this curve, I'll show it, it will be moving that 45-degree angle and it will be that shape like this. Both these curve will analyze again when there will that equilibrium conditions. So remember it and go through your books and read. So what is the aggregate supply? It is the money value of total supply of goods and services available for purchase by an accounting year during the given period. And the components of the aggregate supply is consumption plus savings. Thank you.